The one thing you should never talk about is people's money, right? So today, let's talk about it on Kingdom Speak with Pastor Daniel McKillop. Money. So, you're the pastor, you walk up to the podium, the pulpit, and you got your notes, and you know you're going to be talking about money. What's it feel like right before you just ruin everyone's day?
Let me give you my 10 cents worth on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you get it?
No, still thinking about it.
10 cents?
Dollar. You remember that story?
No?
Ask Isaac Churchill.
Okay, I will.
Dollar.
I don't think he listens to the podcast.
Yes,
Dollar.
he does. If he doesn't, some of his crew does. And
Okay. Let Isaac know that he needs to tell the co-host about the dollar story.
And if you're listening, keep those lines straight on the lawn, boys. Keep them straight.
Yes.
Once in a while, I demand a picture for quality control from those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Keep them stripes.
Good.
Shout out to all the landscapers listening to us right now.
Making money.
Yes.
It's nice to see grass up here in Canada, I'll tell you that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. How you guys? Yeah. Let's get into a review.
It's Friday.
It's Friday. Finally. Don't you think this is ironic, Pastor McKillop, that this week we're talking about money, and then next week we're going to talk about where ladies can spend their money?
Oh, yeah.
Don't you think that's kind of ironic? We have to prepare you for the next show.
Well, we don't want you to let evil creep in unawares.
We would hate for all the husbands out there to see their spouses go off track. Like, let's keep it on the rails.
Just trust us. Next week you will thank us for this week. How about that?
Yes. Some of you will.
Yes.
Oh my. Timely and inspiring, all in caps. Timely and inspiring.
Not expiring.
Yeah.
Surely.
This podcast has always been a blessing to me as a young preacher and continues to be an encouragement for me throughout any given week. Thank you for what you do to see the apostolic message go forward. I think producer Randy does a great job because my name is Randy as well.
Oh, there it is.
See, there it is. That's correlation, but that doesn't mean it's fact. Anyways, we move on. Go producer Randy. That is submitted from Preacher Randall. Did you write this yourself?
Oh.
On Apple Podcasts.
Yes.
Thank you, Preacher Randall. We will say amen to you.
Can I get an amen? Amen. Can I get a hallelujah? Hallelujah.
A little suspect, but we'll go with it. Let it go this time.
The preacher part kind of.
Yeah.
You're getting real innovative there.
We'll let it go this time.
Yeah. Did he say it was Preacher Randall or Preacher?
Randall.
Yeah, Preacher Randall.
I don't know.
My name is Randy, so.
Okay.
Legally.
It's Randy.
Legally.
Yeah.
So let's get right into the pocketbooks today. And the piggy banks, don't you think?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
We've talked about money a couple times, haven't we?
We have.
I don't remember. It was so memorable, I don't remember the last time we talked about it. But I do recall us talking. Obviously we had...
Do you feel shortchanged or? Okay.
We had Pastor Caleb Adams on. Did some money talk.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we've done at least one episode. And then, yeah. Okay, so today is a little twist, though, in that you're tying money to salvation.
Absolutely.
I suppose you're not tying it to it. It is tied to it.
It is tied. We are going to talk about how it's tied.
So maybe there'll be
salvation.
a light bulb moment for the audience today or two on the revelation associated with that. So,
absolutely.
You preached on this quite a while ago.
So, yeah. Do you remember that, or do you just?
I do. I actually do.
Okay.
I was born.
Okay.
And success.
Yeah.
For the local audience, Pastor has his notes, and he has his former address on there. And I was looking at it before we recorded, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Say what you said when you were reading the notes, and you made a comment to him about his preaching.
Yeah. It appears like he could preach way back then too. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I thought it was more of like a new thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Turning
you know
over
what
a
I mean?
new leaf.
Yeah, sort
Yeah.
of that senior role.
Yeah.
It's a backhanded
Mature,
compliment.
very
Yeah.
very mature.
Yeah.
No, it appears way back.
Way back.
He had some good notes. So
Just thankfully you can't remember where I got them back then. That's
don't.
good. Yeah. You notice I didn't put my sources in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
co-host, did you realize there is page numbers on these?
I saw that. I was going to let that go, actually, but thank you for bringing that up.
That automatically dictates age.
So I got a question to ask you. Are you saved?
Yes, sir.
How do you know?
Evidence.
You can read.
Yeah, he can read. He's following. You're tracking pretty good. You're tracking pretty good.
I'm here today. Mm-hmm.
Salvation affects the whole man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I've mentioned this before about even something like time management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Redeeming the time.
Yep.
So it's saving time,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Literally. Yes.
The concept of redemption is it's a transaction.
Right.
And so the apostle is letting us know that we need to play the role of redeemer for our time. And so he says, redeem it.
That's
Days are evil.
If left to its original state.
Right. Right.
Right.
So a lot of times we think that salvation, if we'll categorize it, we expect it to change behavioral patterns, emotional patterns, obviously dealing with sin and atonement. But the reality is money needs to be saved too. Now that's a play on words, in case you didn't get that. But if you're saved, it will affect how you handle finances, or it should
Definitely.
affect how you handle finances.
I'm sure there are people in the audience driving in the car, flying in the plane, wherever you're listening to us right now, who automatically think, well, isn't money bad?
It's evil.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Or you've heard that, ooh, that guy's rich.
He must have done something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking to squeak out an existence here and take my oath to poverty, and
Right.
which we have talked about that kind of stuff.
Right. And so when you start talking about this, the guardrails on the road are that,
Yeah.
you know, somewhere between the prosperity preaching televangelist
Yeah.
and the oath to poverty taking priest who owns nothing of earthly value is a good medium
That's right.
balance.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And so if you're saved, you need to act like it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're saved, you need to talk like it. And if you're saved, you need to handle your money like you're saved.
Yes.
You should be able to observe someone who has experienced salvation and tell that they are a saved individual.
That's right. That's right. And I suppose that the first verse we could go to that is talked about is the love of money is the root of all evil,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So we were talking right before the show about how the root can show up in a lot of different forms.
Exactly. And I think we need to back up again, maybe one step farther from that and make sure we read that properly or perceive it properly. Money is not the root of all evil.
Correct. Correct.
The love of money is the root of all evil. I've had this discussion before, and so if there's anybody that's still listening to us, because typically at this point when you're
been shut off.
when you're in a live session, like they're gone. The audience is gone.
If they don't want to hear us talk about it, they're gone by now.
They're gone.
Yeah.
They're gone. So those of you that are still here,
That's right.
first of all, thank you. But the
Do you want some free merch? You're still listening?
Tune in for your blessing.
we have a secret discount for you.
That's right.
10% off.
I've had this discussion with fellow pastors about an individual, and maybe even in leadership, that is struggling with managing money.
All right.
Okay? I'm sure we've all known of somebody that has, and the statement was made, and I'll never forget when it really dawned on me. The statement was made to me one time. Well, at least he didn't have a moral problem. He just had a money problem. And when they said that, it didn't sit right. And I'll never forget when it all began to come together for me that we're doing that individual an injustice by bunting their issue, their money issue, down the road and not dealing with it. For, as you've already cited, the love of money is the root of all evil. So for them to be having a money issue and not a moral issue does not give us a pass on handling the money issue.
Right.
Because the likelihood of it becoming a moral issue is very high.
Well, yeah, but let's flip it around and say if you're suffering from a moral issue or if you're having a moral struggle,
if you go to the root of
we
that,
can go back, which is quite a mind warp.
It is a mind warp.
Right?
Somewhere in there, again, it's not how much money you have, it's the love that you have for it. That somewhere it is in the root structure of your failure. There is a love for money problem.
Well, and even if you look in history, a lot of the terrible people in history were motivated by extreme wealth, right? Even that's validated by historical.
Yes.
And it drives people to do
Heinous.
evil.
Right.
Right.
Right. Which is interesting, okay? Because in the discussion of the love of money being the root of all evil, I can speak for our church. Our church is not a stingy church. They are a generous church, a giving church. They invest in the kingdom. They go above and beyond.
Yep.
But you can step into that church that I just described, begin talking about money, and you feel in the spirit it just tighten a bit. That always baffled me. Why? They're not clutching their handbooks and their wallets and their handbags and running for the door going, oh no, he's going to take up an offering. It's a spiritual thing. The connectivity there is one on a spirit level. And I'll never forget when it really dawned on me that I can step to the pulpit and begin teaching on proper relationships. I can teach on jealousy. I can teach on immorality, adultery, fornication, incest, whatever. You label it. And when you begin addressing it in the spirit world, you get the resistance from that localized demographic that you are addressing. Okay. I'm addressing adultery. I get kickback in the spirit from that particular field or domain of spiritual resistance as it pertains to the immorality that we're addressing. When you start touching money, you get resistance from every demographic of that evil spirit world.
It just starts popping up.
And that is why you feel such a resistance to it to begin talking about the love of money. It's because in the spirit world, you're staking claims. So whenever we are dealing with any issue that is not a money issue, this is a massive deal. When we're dealing with any issue that is not a money issue, you're only dealing with a symptom. You're not dealing with the root. The symptom is what you're dealing with. The root is the love of money. And somewhere, if you trace it far enough back, you're going to find the love of money at the root of that divorce, at the root of that breakup somewhere. And so as spiritual leaders, it is paramount that we talk about money. And now we begin to understand why Jesus spent so much time talking about money.
Bro, he did.
More than heaven, more than hell, he talked about money.
Yeah, and putting it very, very logical here, think when the last time you have been to a headline conference and one of the keynote ministers get up and preach a sermon about money. I mean,
Exactly.
Right.
I believe the last Arkansas camp meeting I was at, Bishop Holmes was the, I think it was a Monday night, and he taught on tithing.
He's the kind of guy that could do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Not many other people
To
would.
your point,
And
I'm talking like this was 4 years ago.
the better thing I was trying to get at was, how would you feel if you were going to preach, I don't know, pick whatever one we want, no limits, and you're feeling to preach about money?
Oh, you're swimming upstream, bro.
Wouldn't that
You are
be
talking to God intently about this.
intimidating spot, right?
Are you kidding me?
The fleece is on the front lawn.
Right. Yes. Yes.
The entire lawn.
Yeah.
Look at my white lawn. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Oh man.
Because of the resistance with it. But we are doing the church an injustice to only deal with symptoms
Well, yeah, and the importance.
and not deal with the root.
I was going to say, to flip this to the positive side, if you can conquer this in your life, or at least keep
Yes.
guardrails on
Yes.
and pay attention to this consistently, it seems like you'll save yourself a lot of other issues.
Absolutely you will. Absolutely you will. If we could look at somebody and say, if you do this one thing right, it'll affect everything else that you do. Do you think it would be worth listening to that?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about money though.
And when you talk about money,
Makes you cinches up.
Yeah, we're like 16 minutes in. I don't know how many people's left.
yeah.
Is anybody else?
Is there anybody here?
Yeah.
Hey, we're still here.
By the way, we can see in the algorithms.
That's right. We watch
When
it
you
drop.
drop off, we can hear. You may not think we hear the door shut, but we know the door's shut.
Yeah, if you want to really cover your tracks, keep it playing and just walk
Mute it.
away. Take the headphones out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
John the Baptist is an example, and there's numerous ones, and we can't cover them all. But John the Baptist, whenever they would come out to hear him preach in the wilderness, his responses to them were transactional in nature. They were like a business transaction. So read, for example, Luke the 3rd chapter and the 11th verse.
3:11 says, He answereth and saith unto them, He that hath 2 coats, let him impart to him that hath none, and he that hath meat, let him do likewise. Then came also publicans to be baptized, and said unto him, Master, what shall we do? And he said unto them, Exact no more than that which is appointed you. And the soldiers likewise demanded of him, saying, And what shall we do? And he said unto them, Do violence to no man, neither accuse any falsely, and be content with your wages.
Money or possessions were the response of John the Baptist to everybody's question when they came to be baptized. What should we do? He was letting them know redemption and that process changes how you handle stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you handle your possessions, that's fine. But if your possessions possess you, that's a problem.
Wow. Say that once more.
If you handle your possessions, that's fine.
Right.
But if your possessions possess you, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. It's not about how much stuff you have. It's about how much of you does your stuff have. A saved man can have stuff, but he doesn't allow his stuff to possess him.
Well, yes. And we'll talk more about this, so we don't have to steal your thunder. But there are plenty of successful people with money in the Bible.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Very successful.
Right.
The Bible is not just built on poor people or people without any
The
possessions.
kingdom needs finances to function.
Yeah.
Okay? So we all know that God supernaturally has the ability to fly in the food that you need. Right? But that's not the preferred method. The reason that we're talking about it with the awe that we do is it was a one-off.
That's correct.
That was not a long-term plan for Elijah.
Nope.
Okay, another example is Zacchaeus in Luke 19.
Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half my goods I give to the poor, and if I have taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold.
So I'm going to give back. Now that's coming from the tax collector.
That's right. Yes.
Right? He said, I will give back 4 times what I have exacted from them. Now that's quite only him and Jesus knew exactly how much that was. But that was no small statement. To which Jesus responds with,
This day is salvation come to this house.
oh man, you're saved.
Yeah.
You know how to handle that?
I can tell that you are saved, brother.
Yeah.
Your pocketbook is backing up your claim of salvation.
Man. That's good stuff.
So there is a fundamental connection between our spiritual lives and how we think about and handle our finances.
Amen to that.
Okay?
Honk your horn if you're driving down the road. That's
think-
some good stuff.
I don't know if there's anybody still listening.
Oh, yeah, we got some. Some. Guaranteed.
Okay? Quickly, because we how far are we in now? You said we were 16 minutes, 16 minutes
we're
ago.
more.
23.
We're more.
Yeah.
We're a ways.
Okay. For God so loved the world, you give us the reference on that he gave. Okay? So again, the concept of redemption is a transaction.
That's correct.
Atonement is a transaction. We have this bill of sin, and we need someone to pay the fiddler. And so God so loved us that he gave. He gave. The connectivity between loving and giving is undeniable.
Yeah, and if you're not making the connections as the audience, this is highlighting transactions inside of salvation,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the fact that they are an expression of love,
Right.
not lust.
Right.
Okay. Lust is about receiving. It's about what you can get
Exactly.
out of the transaction. Love is about what you bring. And so you see Hebrews talks about it in numerous places, how that the blood of Christ was offered. He offered himself. Christ was once offered. This man, after he had offered, it's offerings that are based in a love for those that he's redeeming. Okay? Abraham offered his son Isaac.
That's right.
The offering was, again, an expression of love. It was not about what he could get. It was about what he was bringing. Lusters are more about what they get from God, okay,
Wow.
than what they give to God.
Oh, man.
It is, Rick Warren said this, it is possible to give without loving, but it is impossible to love without giving.
Yes, sir. That's the truth.
Okay?
That is the truth.
So, the idea that you can love God and not be a giver is an impossibility.
Yeah. Seems.
God loved you, so he gave. You cannot just arbitrarily say, and oh, by the way, I love you back.
Yeah. You love God, so you take? No.
No.
Ask for more.
You just mentioned Pastor Rick. Isn't it about time for another purpose-driven series?
Yeah.
You were too young to remember the original purpose-driven life.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like purpose-driven cereal.
Everything was
purpose-driven
purpose-driven.
slippers.
Yeah.
That was a time. Yeah.
Yeah. That was all a thing.
It was a thing. It was a thing.
So this is where, if you've survived up until now, I was talking about money, this is where we ditch the rest of the crew. This is where tithing comes in.
What? Whoa.
Yeah.
All right?
We're going to get demonetized.
Yeah. This is where the comment section lights up with every heinous doctrine about tithing is just Old Testament. Tithing. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. The concept that you would take something from God and not give it back in return is a love-lust problem. You're expecting him to love you, but all you want to do is take from him. All right? And so it is established throughout the Word of God that tithing is biblical. It is not a human institution or a human invention. Tithing is biblical. We're going to give you a few examples of this, but Abraham, as the father of the faithful, was the first to actually ascribe it as tithing and a 10%. And he's coming back and he meets Melchizedek, and maybe we could have a guest on who could tell us who that is. But the bottom line is in Genesis, the 14th chapter and the 19th verse, what did Abraham do?
He blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, Professor of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand."
So Melchizedek blesses him, and Abraham
gave him,
responded,
and Abram gave him a tenth of everything.
I received the blessing, and I'm not going to be a luster. I'm going to give back. And he gave him a tenth of everything. Jacob is another patriarch.
Before we move on, let's just point out that Abram/Abraham was a very successful individual.
Yes.
And a very wealthy individual.
Yes. Absolutely.
He is one of those guys in the Bible.
Right. Right.
Very wealthy. Jacob, Genesis 28.
Yes.
Want me to read that right now? Verse 20 says, "Then Jacob made a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and I will keep him in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house, and of all that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you."
Wow. Are you noticing? These are the patriarchs of the faith, establishing the pattern for I will give a full tenth to you. You remember when Pastor Adams, and that kind of wrecked my world when he said that God doesn't give you don't give a tenth to get blessed. God blesses you
So that
you give the tenth.
Yes.
He initiates.
Yes.
He
God,
initiates.
God gives first.
Right.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Which is a reverse of what a lot of people think.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Gimme, and I'll give you back.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If you then
Okay? And you see this. Jacob saying, if you give me this and give me this and give me this, my response to you will be in kind. And God will enter covenant with people like that. Okay? So then, this is all pre the law. This was based on love. It's introduced in Leviticus as the law. In Leviticus, the 27th chapter, in the 30th verse, what does he say?
Every tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the trees, it is the Lord's. It is holy to the Lord. If a man wishes to redeem some of his tithe, he shall add a fifth to it. And every tithe of
So in other words, and that's we don't have time to get in that, but if you don't pay your tithes and then you want to come back and fix it, there's interest.
and every tithe of herds and flocks.
Yes.
Every 10th animal of all that pass under the herdsman's staff shall be holy to the Lord. One shall not differentiate.
Tithe of the herds and the flocks. Now notice this. Every 10th animal that passes under the herdsman's staff
Shall be holy.
right? Here's a key statement.
One shall not differentiate between good or bad. Neither shall he make a substitute for it.
Wow.
And if he does substitute for it, then both it and the substitute shall be holy. It shall not be redeemed.
Yes.
These are the commandments that the Lord commanded Moses.
So we're diving into the midst of a bit of a convoluted passage here, but what he's letting them know is that you're going to tithe on the land, you're going to tithe on the seed, the harvest, you're going to tithe on the livestock, okay? And tithes typically then were paid annually. They would make a trip to Jerusalem. They would bring their livestock, their flocks, and they would pass under the rod of the herdsman. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10. They would mark the 10th one. Okay? And there was no way that the herdsman, I mean, have you ever tried to do that with a flock? There's no way that you can stage that so that you pick, this guy's going to be the 10th guy. Right?
Yeah.
It's you hold the staff, and the 10th one that passes under the staff
That's right.
is the one. And this is where he says, do not differentiate between good or bad. So in other words, if there's a favorite one in the flock and it happens to be
Gotcha.
number 10, don't bring them all back in the pen and go, let's try this again. Right? If there's anyone that I'd like to give the black sheep of the flock. Or I'd like to give the one that's got the disease.
Yep.
Or I'd like to, this one here is worth more.
Yeah.
So I'd rather not. No, it was up to God to control that part of the process. Okay? Do not differentiate between that which is good and that which is evil. Then he goes on to say, and don't make any substitutes. There is strong consensus that that is what was wrong in the New Testament with Ananias and Sapphira's sacrifice that they brought. Everybody else was bringing the totality of what they had sold. Ananias and Sapphira were substituting. Are you giving it all? Oh, yes. And we know the story. All right. The feet of the men that carried your husband out are here to carry you out as well, Sapphira. Okay? Not just because it was a matter of generosity versus someone else being a bit stingy. They were breaking the law by substituting good versus evil. And he clearly put that in the Levitical law. You are not to choose which one is the 10th. As it comes out, passing under the staff, you give what is number 10. Okay?
What sticks out to me right here, if I can jump in, is tithing does not have to be money.
For sure.
So, if you're thinking, well, I have no money to give.
I'm not rich enough to tithe.
Yeah. Well, once I get $100, I'll give 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once I get $10, I'll spot you $1, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is a big deal in mission fields.
Mm-hmm.
We've been heavily involved with missions, and that's part of it. Well, our folks aren't wealthy. Our folks don't have money. What can they? There's something that you can tithe on.
Mm-hmm.
Something, whether it's rice, everything that you have has a 10% to it.
For sure.
Everything, whether it be water.
Interesting story here. What did Grammy Urquhart call those boxes out of her garden? Remember that? I think.
Oh man, yeah.
But basically, the principle behind it was she also wanted to. Her garden just kept getting bigger.
She set aside.
And she
Yes.
set aside produce from her little garden.
That's cool.
And she always, I think she gave it to the pastor.
Yeah.
Well, that comes
Yeah.
down to farmers resting fields. That principle is
Yes.
right. All of that is built on that. Setting it aside.
Okay, so this is the point.
Yeah.
Number one, you're not giving your money to a preacher. You're giving it to God.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But number two, you're saying, well, I'm giving 10% of my money. No, the reality is everything you have belongs to the Lord. It all.
Yeah.
It's all His.
If you're willing to acknowledge that, that's right.
He is allowing you to manage 90%.
What are you paying for the oxygen you've used for the last X number of years?
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Right? I know a few people that are wasting it, that's for sure. Anyways.
Okay, so the concept of what you've just raised is a massive concept.
Mm-hmm.
When he said, do not pick good versus evil,
Mm-hmm.
that is coming under the rod, where does your mind go with that? That good, evil.
I don't really know.
Does that not go back to the garden?
Yeah, that was kind of what I was going to say, but I didn't know if you wanted me to say that because we never talked about it before the show, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
See, it's not all scripted, folks.
Yeah.
All right.
The tree
Yeah.
of
Good
the
and evil.
knowledge
Yep. Good and evil.
of good
Gotcha.
and evil.
Right?
So the concept, although Abraham is the first man that mentions 10% and tithing, the concept of God always having a portion reserved for himself
Ah, gotcha. Yeah.
goes way back
Oh, don't touch it.
Where
from the beginning. He creates man. He puts him in a garden. It is a place of increase. It is a place of productivity. It is a place where Adam literally could go to bed at night and wake up the next morning, and everything he needed for his existence was within arm's reach, if not literally, figuratively speaking. He didn't have to go outside the garden for anything. The place that God put him in had everything that it needed, that he needed to sustain him.
That's right.
The caveat was this: there's still a piece that I want reserved for me. And God told him, you can touch everything else in that garden. You can eat however much of everything else you want in that garden. The one thing that you can't touch is the tree of life, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, sorry. You can eat however much you want of the tree of life. So here's that concept of good and evil. Don't differentiate. Leave that alone. Leave that portion up to me. You can have all the other trees, but there's that one piece that I want left for me. And that is a concept that was implemented from the beginning of man's existence. It's this: God's portion as it relates to your place. A place of prosperity, a place of productivity, a place of paradise, but it is sustained by valiantly defending that portion that God says is mine. Now notice what Satan tempted Eve with. The first thing that he didn't come tempt her with leaving the garden. Eve, why don't we run away? Why would she want to run away? Everything that she needed, everything that she desired was right there. They were living in a place of abundance. So what did he tempt her to do? Touch God's portion.
The one thing that was set aside.
I can't get you to leave this place. So I want you to touch God's portion. Because if you will consume God's portion, he will drive you out of the place of abundance. That is the basic fundamental foundation of going forward biblically. And that is to this day right now. That if you do not give God his portion, he drives you out of the place of abundance, the place of fruitfulness, the place of productivity. And so that takes the idea that I don't have enough money to give God his portion. So I'm going to use God's portion to pay my light bill and my rent, my rental agreement. No, you will never have enough. If you start consuming God's portion, you are driven out of the place of abundance.
The abundance will diminish.
Your right to the place of abundance is contingent strictly upon, I'm not going to touch God's portion.
Don't touch.
And that is the oldest trick in the devil's arsenal.
The oldest trick in the book, too.
Literally. Literally. And so when you understand that, you begin realizing the role that tithing plays in access to abundance.
A little bit of a different twist on the money talk, isn't it?
But if you're saved, you don't have a problem with it. Right? Money's not the problem. It's what you do with it. It's what you do with it. And the children of Israel came out of Egypt, plundered
Well, yes,
the Egyptians.
they were doing very well.
Yeah. Gold,
Yeah.
precious metals,
Yep.
stones.
Yep. They had taken everything from the neighborhood and left.
Right?
Yeah.
Here's the problem. When they took the gold and made a molten calf out of it, they began to idolize what God had given them to, ultimately, we know a little farther down the timeline of events, it was given to construct
Exactly. Yeah.
a tabernacle,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
So they used it to build a molten calf when it was given to them to make a holy place, to construct an Ark of the Covenant, to create an atmosphere and a place of abundance where redemption could take place. Back to transactions, where humanity could bring sins and leave with redemption.
That's right.
Okay? So at that point, you've got to ask yourself, do I want a golden calf, or do I want an Ark of the Covenant that's overlaid with gold, that has a mercy seat upon it, that has blood applied to it?
The gold looks better in the temple
Right. Right.
because they never get that gold back that they built the calf with.
They had to drink it.
That's right.
They had to drink it.
Poor investment.
Right?
Yeah. That's so good, man. It's good stuff.
So really, as we bring it to a wrap,
Yes, to the 3 people who are left listening at the
yes.
end. Thank
Yes.
you.
Clearly, we have 3
comes-
tithers that are still listening.
Here comes your blessing.
If you're still listening, leave us a review and said, I survived the money episode.
Yes. Yes. I touched the flag at the end.
You made it.
You made it. So he asked in Malachi, shall a man rob God?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is yes. How would that man rob God?
Mm-hmm.
In tithes
And offerings.
and offerings.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, when you don't pay your tithes and you consume God's portion,
Mm-hmm.
you're not stealing from God, you're robbing God. Those are 2 different approaches. A thief breaks in and steals something, and it's out of sight. It's a covert exercise that the individual that was just stolen from doesn't realize it until later.
Mm-hmm.
When you rob somebody, it is a blatant exercise that happens in their face.
Yeah.
Give me your money.
Mm-hmm.
And he is saying, you are robbing me. You're not pulling one over on me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching it. I see what you're doing. But he then goes on to say that if you'll bring your tithes into the storehouse, there will be meat in my house,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And then see, prove me, and see if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing,
The windows of heaven.
that there shall not be room enough for you to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground. Neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. He'll bless you, and he'll rebuke the devourer. All when you get that salvific understanding that even my money is affected by my salvation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're desiring that place of abundance, get your hands off of God's portion, and he'll let you stay and give you access to that place. And you won't have to wonder if you're saved, and we won't have to wonder. Everybody will know you're saved, and you're saving money in the process.